All right, safety fans, get ready, because today we're going deep on how to get ready for construction safety inspector interview.
Mm.
We're going to use RoleCatcher's career and interview guides, kind of like, like your own personal training camp. Hopefully by the end, you'll feel super confident and ready to totally nail that interview.
Yeah, and we're not just shooting for like a passing grade here. We're going for like total safety superstar status, you know?
Love it. So let's jump right into the first question that both guides say is like a guaranteed deal breaker. Can you explain your understanding of OSHA regulations and how they apply to construction sites? It's kind of that classic tell me about yourself question, but for safety.
Exactly. It's your chance to like show off what you know, but instead of just like, reciting the definition of OSHA from a textbook, think about specific regulations and how they actually play out in real construction situations.
So like picking a regulation that's tricky to follow on site and explaining how you make sure people follow it.
Exactly. For example, you could talk about fall protection. That's always a big one in construction.
Hmm.
You could explain that hierarchy of controls, from engineering solutions like guardrails to administrative controls like safety training. And this is where you can really stand out. Mention a time you had to get creative to implement fall protection on like a really complicated project.
That's so smart. It shows you not only know the rules, but you can actually use them in tough situations.
Oh,
It also kind of hints at your problem-solving skills, which hiring managers love.
exactly. And don't forget to mention OSHA enforcement and what happens if people don't follow the rules. It shows you understand that this is serious stuff and that it really impacts worker safety.
Okay, so we've tackled the OSHA basics and shown we can handle real-world problems. Let's move on to question number 2. How do you identify potential safety hazards on a construction site?
This is where you get to show off how proactive you are, almost like a detective when it comes to safety. It's
Mhm.
not enough to just point out hazards. You got to show you have a system.
So walk them through your process. Like, would you start by looking at the plans and blueprints before you even go to the site?
Absolutely. Mentioning that you look for potential hazards in the plans before construction even starts shows you're thinking ahead. Then you can talk about what you do on site, regular, thorough inspections, not just wandering around, but really checking specific areas and activities based on what stage the project's at.
That makes sense. The hazards you'd look for during framing would be different than what you'd look for during finishing work, right?
Exactly. And don't forget about the people working there. Talk about how you talk to the workers because they often have the best idea about the everyday risks, the stuff that someone just passing through might not notice.
That's smart. It shows you value their input and that you get that safety is a team effort. Plus, kind of hints at your communication skills, which are super important for this job.
Absolutely. Now, to really make that proactive approach clear, think about mentioning how you prioritize hazards. You could even use a quick example like, okay, a spill needs attention, but a crane malfunction obviously goes to the top of the list.
That's a great tip. It shows you can assess risk and make decisions under pressure.
Speaking of pressure, questions 3 and 4 are all about situations where your expertise is really put to the test. Worker training and incident management.
Okay, so question 3. How do you ensure construction workers are properly trained in safety procedures? It's not just about giving like a boring PowerPoint presentation, right?
Definitely not. Hiring managers want to see that you can create a whole safety culture and not just go through the motions. So talk about your process for figuring out what training is needed. Do you analyze the tasks? Do you watch what's happening on site? Or do you get feedback from the workers themselves?
So it's about tailoring the training to that specific site and those specific tasks, not just a generic one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And then you can talk about how you create materials that people will actually want to engage with. Maybe you use interactive simulations or on-site demonstrations or even technology like VR training. The key is to show that you're creative and you actually care about making safety stick.
And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful, right? I was messing around with your question bank, and they have some really specific questions about different training methods.
Yeah, it's an awesome resource for getting into the nitty-gritty details. For example, RoleCatcher might ask, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of your training programs? That's a question that a lot of people stumble on.
It's easy to forget about that part,
Yeah.
but being able to show that your training actually makes a difference, that it actually reduces the number of incidents, that's gold.
Absolutely. And this is where being able to measure your results comes in handy. Did the number of incidents go down after your training? Did people get better at reporting near misses? Hiring managers love to see results that are backed up by data.
So it's not just about training, it's about showing that you've actually made a difference. Now that brings us to incident management quad 4. How do you manage and investigate safety incidents on a construction site? This one feels kind of heavy.
It is because it's about leadership when things get tough. Start by explaining your incident response plan. How do you secure the scene? Make sure everyone is safe. And how do you gather information? Then walk them through your investigation process.
So it's kind of like being a safety detective, right?
Yeah.
But besides just figuring out what caused it, what else are hiring managers looking for?
They want to see that you can take what you learn from an incident and turn it into actions that prevent future ones. So talk about how you analyze the root causes, how you identify any systemic problems, and how you recommend changes to procedures, training, or even equipment. This shows you're not just reacting to things, but you're trying to stop them from happening again.
That's a crucial point. It shows you're thinking about long-term solutions, not just putting out fires.
Exactly. And remember, incident management is a team effort. Highlight how you work with the workers, the supervisors, the project managers, and even the regulatory agencies to make sure everything is thorough and transparent.
Okay, so we've shown we can handle training and incident management. Now let's talk about staying ahead of the game. Question 5 asks, how do you stay up to date with new safety regulations and industry best practices? I imagine it's more than just reading OSHA updates, right?
It definitely is. You need to show that you're committed to constantly learning. Mention your involvement in professional organizations like the ASSP, your subscriptions to industry journals, and your participation in relevant conferences or workshops.
So it's about being part of the bigger safety community, not just working on your own. But how do you actually take that knowledge and use it on site?
That's where you bring it back to your own experience. Maybe you implemented a new fall protection system based on the latest research, or you redesigned a safety training program because of feedback you got at a conference.
That makes so much sense. It shows you're not just passively taking in information, you're actually using it to make things safer.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of sharing what you know. Mentoring junior safety staff or giving toolbox talks on new regulations shows leadership. And it shows you're committed to raising the bar for everyone.
That's a great point. Okay, so we've talked about staying up to date and sharing our knowledge. Now let's talk about how we communicate all of this expertise. Question 6 focuses on how do you communicate safety concerns and recommendations to project teams and management? This seems kind of tricky because you're dealing with people at all different levels.
It is, but it's also where your communication skills really get to shine. The key is to tailor your approach to whoever you're talking to. A site supervisor might respond best to a clear, concise explanation with some visuals, while an executive might need a data-driven report showing how safety risks can impact the bottom line.
So it's almost like you're a safety translator, making sure everyone understands the message.
Exactly. And remember, good communication goes both ways. Highlight your ability to really listen and your willingness to consider different perspectives.
That's so important. It shows you're not just there to tell people what to do, you're actually working with them to find the best solutions.
Absolutely. Now, to really nail this question, think about a specific time when you had to convince someone to make safety a priority. Maybe they were hesitant at first. Did you use data, personal stories? What was your strategy?
That's such a helpful tip. A good story can be way more persuasive than just facts.
And speaking of stories, question 7 is all about telling a real-life safety tale. Can you provide an example of a time when you identified a safety hazard on a construction site and developed a plan to mitigate the hazard? This is your chance to be the safety hero.
Okay, this feels like a big one. But with so many possible stories, how do I choose the right one?
Think about the skills the job description emphasizes. Are they looking for someone who's good at problem-solving teamwork? Then choose a story that shows those strengths. And remember, the STAR method is your friend.
Right. Situation, task, action, result. It's like a formula for a great story.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability. Did you run into any obstacles or make any mistakes along the way? Sharing those moments shows that you're humble and that you're willing to learn from your experiences.
Okay, so story chosen, STAR method, use vulnerability embraced. We've almost made it to the final boss of this interview. Question 8. Can you describe your experience with performing safety audits on construction sites? This one feels pretty straightforward.
It can be, but there's a chance to show off how much you know here. Instead of just listing the types of audits you've done, focus on specific things you found, things that show you really pay attention to the details.
So instead of saying, I've done fall protection audits, I can say something like, during a fall protection audit, I noticed that people weren't inspecting harnesses consistently, which made me recommend a new training program for all the site supervisors.
Yeah. Perfect. That shows you not only found the problem, but you actually took steps to fix it. And remember, audits aren't about pointing fingers. They're about working together to solve problems. Highlight how you worked with the teams to put solutions in place and improve safety overall.
That's a great point. It shows you're not just there to enforce rules. You're a partner in making the workplace safer. Okay, so we've tackled all 8 questions. We've shown off our knowledge, our experience, and our problem-solving skills. But before we declare victory, there's one more secret weapon we need to talk about, RoleCatcher.
Ah, yes, RoleCatcher. It's like having a personal interview coach and career advisor right there in your pocket.
I've been using their AI-powered tools, and they're amazing. Their CV tailoring feature helps me highlight the skills that are most relevant for each job, which is so smart because every construction site is different.
And their interview practice feature gives you personalized feedback on your answers, so you can get better at how you explain things and feel more confident. They even have a huge question bank. That covers everything from basic OSHA knowledge to those really specific situations you might encounter in this role.
It's like they interviewed every construction safety inspector out there and put all their wisdom into one platform. And beyond interview prep, RoleCatcher's Career Guide gives you valuable insight into how you can move up in your career, helping you map out your journey from entry level to senior inspector.
It's awesome for understanding the different stages of your career, the skills you need to develop at each level, and the leadership opportunities that are out there.
It's inspiring to see where this career can take you. But for now, let's focus on acing that interview.
Oh,
We've
fuck.
covered a ton today, but we're just getting started. There's even more to discover in RoleCatcher's guides, and we'll dive into those hidden gems in part 2 of this deep dive.
Welcome back, safety fans. Before we jumped into that whole RoleCatcher thing, we were talking about those super important interview questions. Let's pick up where we left off. Remember that question about staying up to date with safety regs and all the best practices.
Oh yeah, question 5. How do you stay up to date with new safety regulations and industry best practices?
Hmm.
It's easy to get overwhelmed with how much info is out there. Like, where do you even start?
It's all about finding the sources that are most relevant to what you specialize in.
Yeah.
Like if you're the fall protection guru, you might subscribe to journals that focus on scaffolding safety or how to operate aerial lifts safely. And professional organizations are like gold mines of information.
Yeah, I was just on the American Society of Safety Professionals website, the ASSP.
Yeah.
And they have a ton of stuff. Webinars, training courses, even local chapter meetings.
Exactly. Going to those events not only keeps you in the loop, but it helps you build a network of other safety pros, people who can share what they know and give you the inside scoop on best practices.
It's like having your own safety support system, bouncing ideas off each other and staying ahead of the game. But it's not just about passively absorbing information, right? How do you actually use what you learn?
That's where RoleCatcher's AI can be super helpful. Their question bank often has scenarios where you have to use your knowledge in real-life situations. For example, they might ask, imagine you're on a site and you see workers using outdated fall protection equipment. How would you handle that?
Oh, that's a good one. It makes you think on your feet and show how you'd actually deal with a tough situation.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher's feedback can help you improve your approach. They might suggest mentioning specific OSHA regs or highlighting how you used your communication skills to calm things down in a tense situation.
It's like having a virtual mentor walking you through those tricky spots. Speaking of communication, that leads us right into question 6. How do you communicate safety concerns and recommendations to project teams and management? This one feels like a minefield. You're dealing with different personalities, different levels of authority, and sometimes people who just don't like change.
You're right. This question is all about showing that you can handle those tricky relationships while still being a champion for safety. The key is to change up your communication style depending on who you're talking to.
So you talk to a veteran construction worker differently than a project manager who doesn't have much experience in the field.
For sure. A seasoned worker might like a straightforward explanation without all the jargon, while a manager might need a presentation with data showing how safety improvements can actually save the company money.
It's like speaking different languages, but with the same goal, getting everyone on board with prioritizing safety.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher can help you tailor your message to make the biggest impact. Their AI can analyze job descriptions and suggest communication styles that fit the company's culture and values.
That's awesome. It's like having a secret decoder ring for corporate communication. Now, for this question, I bet telling a story is super important, right? A good story can really emphasize how important safety is.
Absolutely. Think about a time when you had to convince someone to change a risky behavior or to start using a new safety measure. How do you handle it? Did you use data personal stories or a mix of both?
That's a good reminder to have a few powerful stories ready to go. And speaking of stories, question 7 is basically asking for one. Can you provide an example of a time when you identified a safety hazard on a construction site and developed a plan to mitigate the hazard.
It's like they want your safety superhero origin story.
Exactly. This is your chance to show off your problem-solving skills and how much you care about proactive safety. Pick a story that shows how you think, critically assess risks, and come up with effective solutions.
But with so many examples, how do you choose the one that'll really make you stand out?
Think about what the job description is emphasizing. Are they looking for someone who's really detail-oriented, a strong communicator, a collaborative leader? Then pick a story that highlights those strengths. And remember, the STAR method is your best friend.
Right. Situation, task, action, result. It's like a recipe for a great story. Exactly. And don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable. Did you hit any roadblocks or make any mistakes along the way? Sharing those moments shows that you're humble and that you learn from your experiences.
That's such a good point. It makes you seem more human and shows that you're not afraid to admit when you don't know everything.
Speaking of knowing things, RoleCatcher can be a big help in polishing your story. Their AI can look at what you wrote and suggest ways to make it shorter, more impactful, or more tailored to what the job requires.
It's like having a professional storyteller in your corner, helping you create a narrative that'll really grab those hiring managers.
Okay, so story pick, STAR method used, vulnerability embraced, and RoleCatcher's feedback taken into account. We're ready to face the final question. Can you describe your experience with performing safety audits on construction sites? This one feels pretty straightforward, especially after all those other in-depth questions. It can be, but remember, even simple questions give you a chance to show off what you know. Instead of just listing the types of audits you've done, focus on specific findings. Things that show you have a sharp eye and that you're always looking for ways to improve things.
So instead of saying, I've done fall protection audits, I could say something like, during a fall protection audit, I noticed that there were problems with how people were inspecting harnesses. So I created a new training program for all the site supervisors, and it led to a 20% drop in fall-related incidents.
Perfect. That shows you not only spotted the problem, but you took action to fix it and you got real results. And remember, audits aren't about blaming people. They're about working together to make things better. Highlight how you worked with the teams to put solutions in place and improve safety overall.
That's a great point. It shows you're not just a rule enforcer. You're a partner in building a safer workplace. And this is where RoleCatcher can be really helpful in showing off those teamwork skills. Their AI can look at your answers and suggest ways to emphasize how you work well with others and how you're a leader.
Exactly. And don't forget to mention any specific auditing tools or software that you're good at using. This shows your technical skills and that you can use technology to make safety practices even better.
Okay, so we've covered all 8 questions. We've shown off our knowledge, our experience, our problem-solving skills, and even our storytelling skills. We've seen how RoleCatcher's AI can help us tailor our answers, practice how we deliver them, and even map out our career path. But there's one more important piece of the puzzle: career insights.
Yes. The big picture RoleCatcher's career guide is amazing for understanding the different stages of your career, the skills you need to develop at each level, and all the leadership opportunities that are out there. It's pretty inspiring to see where this career can take you.
That's the perfect way to lead into the next part of our deep dive. Let's explore those career insights and see what the future holds for anyone who wants to be a construction safety inspector. Welcome back, safety fans. We've talked about so much in this deep dive, from breaking down those tricky interview questions to mastering the art of telling a good safety story. But like we promised, let's switch gears and check out the exciting career path that's laid out in RoleCatcher's career guide.
Yeah, it's like looking into the future and seeing where your skills and passion for safety can take you. The guide shows a clear path, starting with the entry-level position of construction safety assistant.
Okay, so for someone who's just starting out, what kind of stuff would they be doing at this level?
Think of it like a safety apprenticeship. You'd be helping more experienced inspectors with site visits, doing basic safety checks, keeping records, and really getting some hands-on experience with how things work every day.
That sounds like a great way to learn from the pros and build a solid foundation in safety practices.
Exactly. And as you learn more and get more experience, you'll move up to junior construction safety inspector. Here, you'll take on more responsibility, like doing your own inspections, finding and documenting hazards, and suggesting ways to fix things.
So you're starting to use those problem-solving skills and actually making a difference on the site. What are some of the key things someone needs to be good at to succeed at this level?
Paying attention to detail is crucial, and so is being able to communicate clearly and effectively. You'll be talking to workers, supervisors, and project managers. You'll also need to know OSHA regulations and industry best practices really well.
And this is where RoleCatcher can be a game changer, right? Their AI tools can help you figure out what skills you need to work on and suggest ways to learn and improve.
Exactly. They might recommend specific training courses, online certifications, or even suggest ways to connect with other safety professionals. It's like having your own personal career coach.
So you got the basics down as a junior inspector. What's the next step up the ladder?
The next logical step is to become a full-fledged construction safety inspector. At this level, you're in charge of evaluating whole safety programs, doing big audits, investigating incidents, and even working with regulatory agencies.
Wow, there's a lot more responsibility at this stage. What kind of qualities does someone need to do well in this leadership role?
You got to be a strong leader and be able to make tough decisions under pressure. You also need to be a great communicator and know how to work well with people so you can really advocate for safety and make positive changes within the company.
I imagine understanding industry trends and new safety tech becomes even more important at this level, right?
Absolutely. Staying ahead of the game is essential for any safety pro, but especially for those in leadership roles who are setting the tone for safety culture and pushing for innovation.
That's where RoleCatcher's Career Compass feature can be super helpful, right? It helps you see what other career paths are out there, what the new trends are, and stay updated on all the latest advancements in safety tech.
Exactly. It's like having a personalized roadmap for your career, helping you navigate the always changing world of construction safety.
Okay, so you've made it to the top as a construction safety inspector. Is that the end of the line?
Not necessarily. For those who are ambitious and really want to lead, there's the role of senior construction safety inspector. This is where you go from just doing the work to being a strategic leader.
Okay, so what does that look like in real life? What does a senior inspector do every day?
You'd be leading and mentoring a whole team of safety pros, developing and implementing safety policies for the whole company, managing budgets, and working with executives to make sure safety is built into everything the company does.
Wow, this is like a really important job shaping the future of safety for the whole company.
It is, and for those who are really passionate about making a difference on a bigger scale, there are opportunities to become a consultant, a teacher, or even help develop safety standards for the whole industry.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So whether you're just starting out as a safety assistant or dreaming of being a senior inspector, there's a clear path for growth and so many chances to make a real impact in the world of construction safety.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher is there with you every step of the way, providing the tools, resources, and insights to help you succeed at every level.
We've talked about a lot today, from interview prep to career progression. But what does it all mean for you, our listener, who's ready to start this safety adventure?
It means you have the power to take charge of your career, learn everything you can, and make a real difference in people's lives.
And remember, you're not alone on this journey. RoleCatcher is your trusted guide, giving you the tools, resources, and support to help you reach your full potential.
So go out there, ace those interviews, and help build a safer, healthier, and more sustainable future for the construction industry.
That's it for today's deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and empowering. Remember, safety isn't just a job, it's a calling. Embrace the challenge, never stop learning, and always try to make a positive impact. Best of luck on your journey to becoming a safety superstar.